Select Board meeting in the town of Middlebury for Tuesday, March 24th. In order, so can I have any, first thing is the agenda, approval of the agenda.
I move.
Second?
Any discussions?
Yes, please.
The agenda, yes.
Richard McCurk, your rep on the solid waste board. And I think there was a mix-up, and it probably has to do with the fact that I could roll a grain of rice faster than the mail gets to East Middlebury.
Okay.
Diane really would like, Diane Mott would really, she's been on the board for many, many years and really would like to continue her service as the member.
With you being the alternate?
I'm sorry?
And with you still being the alternate?
And I would be the I was the alternate, and apparently I got moved up a notch, and so I'd like to go back to the way it was, and I think that probably takes another vote.
We'll take care of that on the agenda when we get to that in the agenda, and we'll just make different motions.
Very good.
We'll fire you first, and then hire.
Not the first time.
Thank you. I've actually very few people have ever stepped up for the agenda. So, okay. Any comments or any other suggestions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It's unanimous. The next is the consent agenda.
I
No
move.
motion.
I move.
Second.
Yes, Fred.
You're looking at me like, the only thing is noteworthy is in the check warrants. There's a $7.7 million check. Apparently we had a tax collection date, and that's the money transmitted to the school district. A large proportion of our taxes goes to schools. It's just a larger than usual check.
Okay. I would actually either like to pull this one thing, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the communications on the local option tax and the pilot. I'd like to pull that out and talk about it a minute, because
Okay.
I didn't really understand it, and I think I have a good handle on it, but I think it would be worthy of talking. So if I can have a motion amended to pull that out.
Okay, and where do you want it?
We'll just put it at the end of the agenda.
Okay, sure. Motion is amended.
Okay.
We'll take that out.
Friendly amendment approved.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, next thing is citizens' comments, and I'll read the statement here. This is an opportunity for the community members to briefly comment upon or share their concerns about items that are not on tonight's warned select board agenda. Because comments under this part of the agenda are about issues that are not already before the select board for discussions this evening. We are not in a position to discuss them in depth and try to resolve them now. We will, however, enter your comments into the public record of this meeting, and if appropriate, refer them to concerns of the town manager for further action. Is there anybody here that has a concern that's not already on the agenda? Laura, come on up.
You also have a hand up online before we move on.
Thank you.
Laura Cermely, your rep to the Transportation Advisory Council Committee of the Regional Planning Commission. So I attended their meeting last week, and I don't know if I need to report a lot more to you, because we have such a strong infrastructure committee and staff, but I do get updates. There was a presentation from Tri-Valley Transit, which was similar to what you got at budget time, just talking about their expanded services, and also I brought up the importance of amenities like bus stops and bringing back the bench now that the weather is better, because we do see that need, just considering that, and related to pedestrians and amenities for pedestrians and cyclists and our other users of our roads. We do appreciate the street sweeping and the line striping, and know that that's the time we're in, and we had a very harsh winter that took out a lot of that, and we know that we'll be working towards that, and we're very appreciative of the hard work over this winter and the work that will go into the spring with restoring our striping. And any opportunity that we have to widen shoulders helps calm traffic, so when we can do that and we have the opportunity to do that, that's a good thing. And the zebra striping for crosswalks is much more visible than other ways of painting, so we're grateful that that has been employed by the town, and we want to see that continue. So, just wanted to mention that. And if there's any other reporting you want me to do, I can do it another time.
Thanks, Laura. And there's somebody online?
Yeah, Judy.
Judy? Okay. Hi, Judy, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Is this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, is this something other than,
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yes. So on behalf of the Middlebury Tree Committee, I would like to thank everyone who helped us and the town to become recertified as a Tree City USA for another year. So this makes the 8th year that we have garnered that distinction, and there are relatively few municipalities in the state of Vermont, I think less than 15, who are Tree City USA certified. So I want to thank especially Mark and David and Emily and all the people at DPW for helping us get that recertification.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you in a bit. Okay, moving on, Ilsley Library.
So Dana is online, so
Great.
just give us a moment and she'll hop on.
Hi, Dana.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, well, it feels like a real celebration to me that I'm here to talk about the relocation back into the new building. We're finally at that point, so that's exciting. We are targeting a relocation in early August. Fingers crossed that we stay on track for that. Last time around, Meyer moved us out. That was a more expensive relocation because it involved relocating shelving. We don't have to do that this time. So the cost has come down a little bit. It's still a complicated move. It involves 3 different locations, and we have to interfile a couple of the collections this time around. That means we're merging collections that had been separated between the Duclos building and the Virgins building, and we have to reintegrate them at 75 Main Street. We put out the RFP and got 2 responses, one from Meyer, who we worked with before and who did a great job for about $51,000. And then we also got a bid, the low bid from National Library Relocators at $36,000. They did not attend the pre-bid walkthrough. I have pretty serious concerns that they don't really appreciate the scope and detail of what is required of this move, and some of the complexities of the locations involved. So that low of a figure makes me pretty nervous, and given that we know that we love working with Meyer and that they're intimately familiar with both our collection and the locations, I'm recommending that we move forward with Meyer's bid and contract with them to handle the move back to the library.
And Dana, and this funding for this is not under the library contract. You have it set aside.
Yeah, this funding is part of the fiscal year 27 capital improvements budget for the library.
Okay. So it's not the building part. Any questions, comments?
It makes sense because she had dealt with them before, so I can make a motion if you want.
Okay.
I'll move to award the contract for the library relocation services to Meyer Inc. for $51,347.
Second.
Any further discussions? Okay.
I think the select board should go on a tour of the library, all of us together.
It's right here. Dana, how about all of us coming on a tour?
I would love that. Let's schedule it.
Okay. So now it's up to
I'm not
us.
sure who to email or all of you, I guess, to make it happen, but I would love to do
I
that.
think it would cool.
I'll coordinate if you want, just email me, Dana, and we'll see who wants to go on that.
I already have
If you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty phenomenal. Okay,
Thank you, Dana.
All right, thank you, everyone.
okay,
Thanks, Dana.
we need to vote on that, so.
Oh,
I
I
think it'll
jumped
be
there
okay.
too soon.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Good.
it's all of us, it's unanimous. Thanks, Dana.
All right, thanks, everyone.
That date is coming up pretty quickly. So, next on is Conservation Commission grant application, David Allen.
I'm not David Allen, I'm Ellen Cronin.
I can tell.
So we are asking for approval for a $292 tiny grant from ABCC. It's the first grant that we've gone for ABCC. This past fall, we've had, spring, we've had 3 conservation outreach events, and we have one final one in April, and we're planning for next fall to do 4 more. So we're just asking for money for transportation, food and drink, and for a stipend for possibly 2 speakers who might be not local.
This might be the smallest grant ever come before this board.
The tiny grants are 200 to 800.
200 to 800. Wow.
I would move to approve the proposed application by the Conservation Commission to the Tiny Grant Program with the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions.
Second.
Any discussions or questions?
Thank you for your work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
it's more than, your time is probably more than, but thank you. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous again.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're, infrastructure updates. The first thing is fire department, support truck purchase. Chief Shaw.
Super. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. The rotation's a little different here. I'm getting used to this.
It was disconcerting to me when I came in. They were kind of skewed, and I was just really
Set you
uncomfortable
up.
because of that. You look like you're a long way away too, so.
I'm close enough.
Okay. I was gonna say that first.
Exactly. I appreciate that. I'm here tonight seeking approval for the purchase of a F-250 support truck for the fire department to replace our existing support truck. We will add it to the fleet, so we'll have 2 pickups. This truck is instrumental in our operation as it'll move personnel and have the ability to tow our trailers with town-owned property and not private trucks hauling town property, which is a liability no-no. So that'll move us away from that. Keeping the old truck will allow us to move some of our hazmat material off on our new utility truck onto that truck and free up some space that will be needed when that truck arrives, if it ever arrives. So you have the proposal in front of you. I'm going to take questions if you have any.
I have a question. You went for the XLT and not the XL, or what's the difference besides the stereo systems in that truck, you know?
Yeah, the towing capacity and
Okay.
some of the fuel tank, larger fuel tank. So that the XLT met or exceeded all the bid requirements that we had put out.
And it is a diesel.
And it is a diesel, yes, sir.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a F-250 XLT for the fire department from Keystone Motors for $65,883.
Second.
Any additional discussion or questions?
This came to the infrastructure committee, and Dan and I listened to a more detailed presentation about this and some of the things they used the truck for that you were not aware of. After an incident, you need something to load all your gear into.
Yes.
And maybe use your current truck for that also. But
Yeah, we try not to though. You're absolutely right. Yeah, so all firefighting gear comes off the firefighter the moment that the incident is under control. We're trying to get those carcinogens off our people and into into the back of a truck. Can't carry them in the back of a fire truck anymore. We're trying to separate ourselves from that. You know, cancer is our biggest killer in the fire service. Not fire, it's cancer. And so this truck will aid and certainly help that process of getting our equipment away from us.
How often do you tow trailers?
It's a good question. We could tow them once a week, or we can tow them for 3 weeks. So, but we tow them at least once a month. We have a big technical rescue trailer that has all the technical rescue gear in it, and then we have a boat trailer that has 2 boats on it. And then we have a small trailer down Station 2 that has another boat on it as well.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Would you like to vote?
Yes.
It's your first night.
Sorry.
You're new at this, right? I mean,
No, I'm not. That's pretty typical, when you were calling a vote, you say, what's the pleasure of the board? And that was from, actually, Brian Carpenter's father did that in our church all the time. That's what he always said. Always. Because he was always in charge of the church. So, what's your vote? We have a motion.
In a second.
And a second.
All in favor?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, okay. I see what you're getting to. And we're unanimous again. So, okay. I saw on the news tonight, Chief, again, another thing about needing volunteer firefighters because of the shortage in the state. It's getting serious.
It's serious, yeah. When you're the oldest state in the union and one of the most expensive, that's bound to happen in this profession for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're trying to work out a way to circumvent that, but we haven't found the magic bullet yet. Chief DiBiase has it and hiding it in the back of the room. I'm not
Yeah, we have
aware
2
of
of
that,
them.
but, yeah, none of us have too many people. We're doing far more with far less.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of the other chief from Virgins, Dave, so here for a sidewalk plow purchase.
No, I didn't know he was also.
He's the fire chief of Virgins. He uses that lots of times to get out of meetings. He'll be in a meeting with us. And his phone rings and the guy is gone.
You know where I learned that from? Chief Shop. Good evening, everyone. How are we?
Good.
Some new faces. Nice to meet you.
I have a new face I haven't seen in a long time.
So hopefully everybody knows Matt Cram is the highway superintendent, and I use highway with a very light touch because the amount of things that those guys do is just above and beyond anything to do with roads. If you've seen the fencing that went up at the pool this week, and the benching and new roofing on the pool building, that was these guys. I didn't even know they did half the stuff. We talked about a fence, the next thing, the thing was re-roofed and done. So Matt leads that group extremely well for the town. But we're here tonight to talk about the green machine. So as you guys know, we spent some time last year talking about purchasing a new sidewalk plow. We purchased that machine. It suited us extremely well this year. Had some problems. The company that we purchased it from, we'd have an issue the next morning, there'd be a loaner machine sitting in our shop. So nobody here ever knew the difference because the machine was still out on the sidewalks doing the work. So for us, that's just a breath of fresh air. Our experience with the trackless, as many of us have talked about before, was not that. And it could be weeks, if not months, while that thing was sitting waiting for parts or somebody to even understand what was wrong with it. So
the other part of that is now the company HB Fairfield is in New Hampshire, Hopkinton. So anytime that machine needs work that we can't do in-house, it has to go on a trailer, and it's a 2-hour drive.
The trackless.
Yeah.
So for folks that may not know, we have 2 sidewalk machines. That was the whole plan, to try to get to 2 that could do all of our sidewalks. We saw that as a big issue last season. And I think, we've heard a resounding amount of positivity about how this year's snow removal went on sidewalks specifically. So we were able to have 2 machines. The second machine is that trackless machine that we just discussed. And I think the number in your packet is around $40,000 of maintenance that's gone into that machine. That machine itself was what, $180,000 to replace, somewhere in that ballpark.
It's closer to 195.
195, 200,000, which is why we went with this Advent that we purchased last year. So we'd still like to keep those 2 sidewalk machines, or 2 sidewalk machines that are able to do the entirety of the town, regardless of how narrow the sidewalks are or how low the overhangs may be. And that green machine, or Advent, does that extremely well for us. Matt went out and worked with Emily on the capital fund and the budgeting to understand if we could pull up, that machine wasn't due for another couple of years, but it is falling apart rapidly. There's some structural components of the machine that are about to fail any moment. Hopefully the snow continues to just dust us and we won't have to plow anymore this year, but we are kind of at the end of that machine's useful life expectancy. So Matt went around, they looked at tractors, they looked at another one of those machines, and then we really came back to this machine's worked extremely well. The vendor's been amazing with us, and we think the best path forward is to buy a second machine. And with that, we can also share attachments to some of the specific attachments that we bought last year. So we bought fencing, mowing attachment for that. Some of the things we'll need to buy double of, like snow plows and sanders, right? Those are things that are kind of specific if we want two of them running. But other attachments that, you know, we probably won't have them both out at the same time. They can be swapped back and forth and certainly used. It also hooks through a skid steer attachment. So a lot of our skid steer equipment also hooks to those. So we came to infrastructure. We had a conversation about this. It was supported by that group. I think outside of that, we just really think having two machines, this is a holdover machine that they have, so we got a price deduction there. We didn't go out to bid again because we had just bid this machine when we purchased the first one, and that company, you know, we saw the market, we saw that came out of it, so we felt pretty comfortable moving forward with those bids that we had received before, knowing that there would be some price updates from the time frame lapse. So, you can add to that?
The price for the holdover machine was $119.50, I believe it was, and to buy the current year model is $143. So there's a great savings in this particular unit.
This is a 2024 that's been on the lot.
It's brand new, but it's
Tested out by other towns.
No, actually, just other than themselves driving around the yard, it's got virtually 0 hours on.
I know you isn't very flattering the way you've talked about the old trackless, but does it have any trade-in value?
It probably does have some trade-in value. So part of, not to get way into the weeds of the money, and certainly, hopefully we did a little bit more of that with the infrastructure group, is there's some, we always talk about increasing or decreasing the fleet size and the amount that takes to upkeep that and then end up replacing it, right? And so ideally, the trackless gets sold for some amount of money. I think when we spoke to them last year, a year and a half ago, that was $15,000 to $18,000 that they thought that machine may be worth. And then there's some other thoughts about trading in or selling various pieces of equipment that kind of do the same task. We've got a Bobcat toolcat that may be something that we look at replacing, because this machine can do a lot of those things. It's got a bucket, you can drive down the road, it's very quick, and we can put water on it, which is what that does a lot through the summertime, watering plants and the flowers and things like that. So part of the whole mix of funding is all those variables, Fred, including selling of the trackless for sure.
Can you explain what this trackless means? What's the difference
It's a
between
brand.
that and the one? Oh, it's a
It's a
brand.
brand. Trackless is the brand, but it is that articulating sidewalk machine that you see, the yellow one that's kind of boxy. It's the same thing that a lot of the bigger municipalities use, so Burlington, South Burlington.
And how old was this one? The one we?
2014.
Yeah.
That's when you bought it.
Yes.
And you're having a problem for the last 5 years
Yes.
with that one. Okay.
And they did a motor, 2 or 3 years ago at this point. And a lot of last year, you know, we say that, but most of last year, it didn't run, and we were having to kind of put the toolcat in places that it shouldn't be. So, you know, 5 years, but one of those, it really didn't run a whole lot of that season because of that.
A lot of the issue that we're having with, like, say, the trackless, it's great when it's snowing, a lot of snow. I mean, that's what it's made for, but it sits most of the summer because really it doesn't get utilized because it's not really good for a lot of things in the summer.
It's really heavy too.
So with this Avon, with the number of attachments that we have for it, with the bucket and the fence trimmer and all the stuff, sweeper, the plan is to utilize this thing in different departments as well all summer long. So it's not sitting in the shop, season up, and then take it out next fall, and you got to dump thousands of dollars into it to get it going again. So that's the goal.
What percentage of our snow plowing do we do with town employees versus like contract out to local?
Good question.
100% of the sidewalks.
100% now, we changed our sidewalk program extensively. We used to hire people to come in after work, weekends, before work, outside of Middlebury, employees, and
But
they were hopping
this
up.
machine does only sidewalks. It doesn't do the big lots.
No, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the one you contract out, right?
So we contract out a couple things, right? And we're decreasing that annually. So like this year, we worked with Chief Covey we took that over from a contracting partner from the year before. We've added, as you guys know, buildings and grounds kind of division, and that's slowly kind of coming to fruition of the idea behind it. And it did some of that this year, as well as our mechanic shop was willing to kind of hop in and dedicate. So two of the mechanics, both of them, one took on these smaller plow routes like the PD, and then the other one hopped in the other sidewalk machine. So instead of having to hire a part-time employee this year, we did that all with internal labor. The places that we do currently contract are places like this building, the pedestrian walkway over the Otter Creek, down the footbridge, Mill Street, stairs up through the top there, and then the train station. There's a certain portion of the Amtrak station that the town is responsible for that they also take care of. Again, the idea is to slowly kind of, as we find capacity within internal staffing, and I think it's going to come, we're going to see it again this year with mowing is the other flip side of that for us. We hire a lot of contracted mowing out and really would like to bring that in-house, and we've started to bite those off incrementally.
Yep.
Yeah. And we've got more sidewalk coming, right? As you guys all know, luckily, right? Add tax base, add sidewalk, I think they go together. And certainly Heather Sedalia has been big on that one, asking those questions, and we're really, Matt spoke to it during infrastructure, pretty comfortable today. As those routes get longer and longer and it's taking us 6 or 8 hours to complete a single route, we'll have to have more conversation about staffing and manpower, but we're not there at this point.
Right now, we run 2 routes, and they're about 3.5 hours round trip for both units, and so we're okay right now, but there's 18 miles of sidewalk. And one buggy has to go all the way to East Middlebury, so it takes time. And an ongoing snowstorm, you don't see that tractor back in town for 3.5 hours.
We also saw a lot of salt reduction in that unit this year, which is it was a big priority of DPW, and Matt's crew really took it to heart, where they were calibrating things every week, and they were looking at the salt usage and the way that the spreaders work and what type of system do we want to be dropping salt on the sidewalks. I'm going to say it now because we're out of winter and nobody shot me through the winter. We got rid of the blue salt barrels around town because as silly as that sounds, right? And I know that was a luxury that a lot of people endured for a long time. The amount of salt that went into those barrels and onto the ground at a ginormous rate of usage. I think you would all be just taken aback by how many hours and how many tons of salt was hand loaded in and out of those salt barrels around town. So same thing with this machine. The spreader is situated at a point where we can really control how much salt we're putting down. The sweeper attachment has allowed us in these different areas and different types of snow to sweep the sidewalks, which brings it down to nothing as opposed to kind of glazing over and creating that slippery surface. So that's some of the other kind of technology that this has brought us to be able to use depending on what kind of snow it is.
We also had the 1-ton, you guys probably all saw it in previous years, parked down underneath the bridge, and they would work out of that. Well, now we don't need that anymore because we've dialed our spreaders in, so that one load will actually do a route. So that was huge.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Oh, was there a question out?
I had a question, but you could make your motion and then I'll.
Okay, we'll make the motion.
Okay. I'll move to approve the purchase of Avon 760 GT. Is that the right? Because in the body of the thing it says 760i.
Yeah.
Is it GT or I?
GT.
Okay. 760 GT from Peach Equipment Sales and Rental for $119,050.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion or questions?
So I'm Alice White from the Town of Middlebury Energy Committee.
Yes, Alice.
And last summer we worked on an EV inventory with an intern from Middlebury College. Took a list of all the vehicles in town and did a dashboard which showed which vehicles were possible to replace with EVs, which vehicles might be possible to replace with EVs, and which vehicles were potential replacements. And all of this is toward helping the town operations reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, because there is a resolution that says that we're going to try and do that by 2030. April 14th, you'll hear all about the inventory and you'll learn that progress has not been made. But this kind of popped up, and the track list that we're talking about replacing was on the inventory for replacement in 2028, as Dave mentioned. We haven't looked into whether there's an EV option, although it was yellow on the dashboard, so there are some available. Now, it kind of caught us by surprise, and it's like the avocado Megan. Too early, too early, too late. I'm not going to object to this purchase, but I just hope that we can, each of these vehicle purchases is an opportunity to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And so I just would love it if we could just ask the question, is there an EV option? So that's what I wanted to say, and you'll hear more from us on April 14th.
Yeah, and just to that note, right, so we are taking a non-Tier 4 final emissions vehicle, replacing that with a Tier 4 final emissions low or high efficiency use diesel motor. So this is the highest standard at this point of diesel motors. So we are reducing that footprint of the current, right?
Wasn't in the public record.
Yeah. So
happy to hear that, Dave.
it's pretty much required of all diesel vehicles at this point that have been manufactured in the last 3 years. Further to that, you guys know, and we're getting a little bit further into this, but if I'm not here when that presentation happens, we bought a Lightning for my use, right? And then I will say generally it's been great for most days. When we're working in the cold, it has been horrendous, and literally leaving water breaks or things to charge 2 or 3 times throughout an event hasn't created a great deal of trust from the staff that our heavy equipment would be able to sustain the duration of events that we go through, especially in a snow plowing instance. So, and that's not to shoot down the EVs. I just think there has to build that trust before the staff are going to be ready to accept that to the level. And generally, we looked at mowers last year. The price that has come with at least the heavy equipment today, right? Pricing will get better as time goes along, as we know with these things. But as it is today, it's such a new market that things are generally much more expensive on the heavy equipment market for those things. So just our 2 cents on where we're sitting in that kind of full EV world. DPW.
Thank you, both of you. Okay, so ready to vote? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's another unanimous vote. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. And next, I think we have Emily coming up to talk about a contract.
Yes. So I am looking for approval for a contract with Aldrich and Elliott to continue our, hi, I'm Emily, stand down. To work on our long-term pollution control plan, which is required by the EPA. And we've been making good progress, but this is a good time also to sort of review it. We've sort of been using it as our asset management plan for the wastewater side of things, because they make recommendations for lines, wastewater lines that need to be reviewed for infiltration. And so, for example, the line that we did at Stonecrop through there, lining that last summer, that was all part of this long-term control plan. So they've looked at pump stations and just a number of different components of the overall system. So this will update it and give us new information and feedback on the improvements that we've been making. We have received an extension from the state to September from the initial May deadline. So it will give us more time to do a more thorough, good review of the system. Any questions?
I have a question. I was curious, and maybe I misunderstood this, but I know we're doing the mitigation project, but is there still overflow outfalls that are contaminated, and where are they?
We have, I think they mentioned 4. I think they mentioned 4 in their proposal. We have the main pump station down on Lucius Shaw Line. We have the main plant. Those are the big ones. And then we also have Pump Station 9, Pump Station 3, which are both on Weybridge Street, and then Battelle Block, which is right over here across the river. Those are the 5 big ones that we'll be working on. Pump Station 9, we are working on some engineering to make improvements there. We made improvements to Halliday Road Pump Station here now, so that one sort of fixed that issue. But those are the discharge points where it would be going directly into the river.
Yeah. So it is currently, so there's untreated discharge still going into the river in those places?
Occasionally, it's only, what we have in town is infiltration events. So during rain events, if our lines collect too much stormwater, they get inundated and then the pump station can't keep up. And so I think the main plant, hang on, I have it. I think the main pump station had 3 discharges last year, but they were mechanical failures. They weren't related to rain. And so then the only...
So like 3 incidents of that happening.
Yeah,
okay.
and then the only discharges that we had related to rain were at Pump Station 9 out on Weybridge. And I believe we had 4 in the last year, which is way down from what it used to be. We changed some pumps and some controls in there, so they're able to monitor a bit more accurately. So we've been making improvements, and then just even little things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, but cleaning the lines during the summertime, just making capacity available and making flow available. We've been increasing things like that, which has made a big improvement. Getting people's roof drainage disconnected from the sewer system, that's made a big impact. So I think for Pump Station 3, the South Street project will be the biggest impact for that one. Once we complete that work, we should be in good shape.
Cool. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
There's quite a graph of this in the preliminary engineering report for the wastewater plant that shows the spikes overall in the system and in the planning for the new big improvements there. I would move to approve the contract with Aldrich and Elliott for updating the long-term wastewater control plan for $63,100.
Second.
Any further questions or discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, it's unanimous again. Thank you.
Do you want project updates?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay, so I have been plugging away on applications for wastewater plant upgrade funding. So there, you have a letter in the consent agenda tonight, which mirrors the one that was submitted 2 weeks ago. Both Sanders and Welch, Senator Sanders and Welch, have their portals open now, and so they're due at the end of this week, beginning of next week. And so we're putting that application specifically towards the solids handling process, which is the new centrifuge presses and the dryer that I think you're all familiar with. Danielle, we should set you up with a tour of the plant, because you're going to be hearing a lot about this.
It's a cool tour.
That's so stinky.
So we're putting this round of funding towards the solids handling process. And then I also submitted to Representative Balance portal a month ago or so, and that one was specific to septic handling. From talking with them, we sort of followed the same route with the Northern Borders grant. That one I did towards septic handling. Sort of the thought is that as these portals open again, I'll be able to submit for a different component of the project, so we could potentially get additional funding from the same source.
Nice.
That's the goal. We'll see. Otherwise, we are putting a lot of projects out to bid in the very near future. South Street is going out to bid April 1st, and we also have the townwide paving contracts and sidewalk improvement contracts coming out within the next few weeks, just for the townwide stuff. And then South Street should be completed by end of September, early October is the goal. So
Completed for this year.
yes, it's a very small leg
Yes.
that we are working on,
Yes.
biting it off in small components. So yes, it will be completed this year. Don't make Ellen nervous otherwise.
Okay.
And then the water tank, they are mobilizing back into town April 13th. So
great.
I think it'll be Munson doing more site work for the first couple weeks with the tank construction starting in May. So it'll start getting busy again.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Any questions?
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
So in fairness for people watching, we're only about 5 minutes ahead. Maybe we skip to number 9 and do that. That should take up.
Can we take up the one we took off from the consent?
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. I'd like to just continue down with the one for the Addison County Solid Waste Management District Board of Supervisors. Richard has resigned and is running for a different office now, so I probably could use a either one big motion or we could do 2 separate motions.
I would move to appoint Diane Mott as the Middlebury Addison County Solid Waste Management District Board of Supervisor Delegate for a term of 1 year, and to reassign Richard McCurr as the alternate.
Second.
Any discussions? No concerns? This is good, Richard.
Another close election.
You were only out of job for a couple of seconds there, so, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's unanimous, and we still are a couple minutes, maybe we'll just press ahead. So the next, on the number 8 is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Police Department and Town Clerk discussion. So this has arisen obviously from news and what's happening in our state and around and all of our country. The Select Board asked for this update a few weeks ago, so we could see where the town is in our efforts to be prepared and understand how the police force and how we as a community react. So tonight, I'm sure everybody is here for this. So the way I would like to do it is I'll turn it over to Mark, and he has some things to say, and the chief has some things to say. And I'm going to let the Select Board ask questions or have some discussions, and then I'll open the floor for questions or comments, and I'll ask you to come up with those. And just to keep it a little more organized, I'm going to give you each about 3 minutes, and we'll time that. And you get one chance, and if we need to repeat or anything, we'll do that. But and we'll just keep it kind of organized and flow. And you can just come up questions after questions or make your statements. And I'm sure a couple of you might have prepared statements. But to start out with, we as Select Board members are obviously concerned and interested in this. We see the same news you do, so we understand what's going on. Our effort here for us, and I hope and I assume for you too, is to make sure that our community is prepared if or when situations occur with immigration issues. I know I can proudly say that being a member of this town, I think we have an outstanding police force who are well trained, and we've watched them operate under these circumstances before. And we have a town staff that is certainly concerned and interested in this us being safe. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark, and we'll hear from him and the chief.
Okay, thanks, Dan. As you mentioned, we discussed this. Actually, it came up for the first time, I believe, at our February 24th meeting, so just before our annual town meeting. And Ross Conrad, who's here this evening, actually brought it up during citizen comment time and asked if the town had any plan to address requests from federal agents. And at that time, what I said was that I would speak to staff and report back to the board. So we discussed this at our next 2 department head meetings. We meet every other Wednesday. And I also met with Karen Mott, our town clerk, who's here this evening, and Chief Covey, our police chief, because I figured they're the 2 most likely departments to be asked for information or assistance from federal agents. In addition to what we included in your packet this evening, the fair and impartial policing policy and some guidance for local officials from the clerk's office, we added this week a quick access tab on the homepage of our website titled ICE Resources. Could you actually pull that up so that people can see where it is? And it includes a link to the Vermont AG's Know Your Rights When Encountering ICE guide, and it's in 2 languages. There it is right there. It includes contact information for Migrant Justice's Rapid Response Line and basic information for what to do if you or someone you know is at immediate risk of being detained. So both Karen Mott, our town clerk, and Chief Covey are here to talk with you and answer any questions you may have. So I'll ask them to come up.
Good evening. Hi there, thanks. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Yeah. So in this town, I'm the town clerk, which in Vermont also means that I'm the chair of elections. And so election safety, free and fair elections, all that kind of stuff at the local level is my job. I also help to run state and federal elections in our local community. I am still responsible for safety and free and fair elections as far as I can reach them in our local community. Anytime there is an interface potentially with the federal government and our elections, my responsibilities are turned over to the state, and we receive, anytime there's anything to do with the federal election or anything to do with the state election that wouldn't just apply to Middlebury, we receive guidance from the Secretary of State's office in the Office of Elections. And that has been the case for the potential for running into ICE at an election. And my part of the discussion tonight is going to be limited to running into ICE as part of an election process. Anything else, I think I'll defer to Mark and to Jason on. I think part of the packet that was put up on the website was the Vermont Secretary of State's guidance on dealing with ICE, but I've made a bunch of paper copies. Does anybody want paper copies to follow along with? Yeah. Thank you. So there's 2 pieces of information in the packet that I just gave to you all. Does anybody on the select board need hard copies too? You guys are okay?
This was emailed to us, but we don't have it it's not posted on the website, correct?
It's in the packet, right?
In the packet, okay, thank you.
It's at the bottom. Under number 8.
Everybody good? So I'm going to read a little bit verbatim from this because I can't say enough that the guidance that we will use for handling any sort of a meeting up with ICE in the election setting will be this. There is nothing else, and there cannot be anything else by law. This is the guidance we follow. So the first thing on that list says, can the government send ICE or other federal agents into polling places? The answer is no. So legally, no, that isn't allowed. Several federal laws prohibit it, and those laws are listed on there. We don't have to go into them. You could hyperlink them and find out all about the individual laws, but that's not for us to discuss right now. Theoretically, ICE is not allowed in a polling place. What should local officials do if federal agents try to enter a polling place? So that's an interesting changeover when they're not actually allowed to do that, but so if they happen to. They recommend that the presiding officer, which would be me, take the following steps. Number one, to politely and firmly tell the agents that you're responsible for maintaining an orderly election and you need them to leave the premises. We would do this if someone from ICE showed up at our polling place. We would do this if someone showed up at our polling place armed or displaying threatening behavior or anything that felt like it was going to disturb the election process. That's always where we start. I mean, it's just kind of basic customer service. Number two, if you believe a crime has been committed, call local law enforcement and or the Vermont State Police. Certainly always start with Jason and his team. Before every election, I either meet up with Jason, or in this case, I think Jason was out of town, so I met up with his deputy to talk about security at the election. Here in Middlebury, at least as long as I've been here, we haven't had any security issues at the election that have caused me to have any sort of worry about it, but I always do ask that somebody be on call for us if we need it, and that somebody kind of cruise in and out of the parking lot a few times during the election just to see, is everything fine? If there was any reason that it wasn't fine, I would have called anyway. But also to give people a feeling of somebody's here controlling the situation, somebody's here to watch out in the event that something got heated with folks campaigning outside, or a couple of folks got angry about parking spaces, which is a much more likely reason for violence in our elections. I think it just helps to have that presence from time to time. To my knowledge, we've never had law enforcement officers stationed outside of an election place. The next thing was then call the Secretary of State's Elections Division at 802-828-0588, and we will coordinate with our partners at the Attorney General's office. I can't say that this gives me a great level of confidence in that moment. If I really had anybody who was acting irrationally in the polling place, and that would include anybody breaking the law, maybe I would have the time to think about calling the Secretary of State's office. The closest person is in Montpelier, and I'm guessing they're not going to be rushing to do something about my situation right then. But that is the guidance that we have there. So what if ICE operates down the street from polling places on election day? Federal agents are permitted to operate in public spaces if they're not breaking other laws. So if it's election day and there's something going on with ICE 2 doors down from the polling place, that has nothing to do with the elections. If it's happening somewhere else, anywhere else in Middlebury, that has nothing to do with the elections, and it's not my job to do something about it, and I will not, because it's not what I should be doing that day. That day I have to be making sure that our elections are free, fair, and safe. What else can Vermont election officials do to prepare for such situations? First, we can review and share the laws above and the Vermont Law Enforcement Quick Reference Guide with our local law enforcement contacts. Just to be clear, we received this piece of paper about 24 hours before town meeting day, so I didn't share this with Chief Covey until a week ago. And then second, regardless of whether anyone actually attempts to interfere on election day, the rhetoric could cause some voters to stay home out of fear. If your town votes by Australian ballot, please promote early voting as a great option for anyone who has concerns or impediments to voting on town meeting day, and promote the Vermont Voter Portal, your clerk's office hours, and ballot box location. We widely spread this information every year about early voting and deadlines and the places you can take your ballots, and we will continue to do that. I'm not sure that I think it's a particularly good idea to treat this election coming up, the primary in August, or the November election, any differently than we would another when it comes to absentee ballots. It's anyone's right in Vermont to have an absentee ballot, as long as you request one in time. and as long as you are registered to vote here. We're very fortunate in this state that anyone can do that. There are no special circumstances required for absentee balloting. And I don't think we've ever refused one to anyone or not found a way for them to vote, regardless of the circumstances.
You said request, isn't the Secretary of State going to mail out ballots for this general election?
The Secretary of State's office has mailed out ballots to every Vermont registered voter in the general election since 2020. I am assuming that's what they're going to do again this year, but that would not be the case for the primary in August.
Well, they are going to have to request it for the general. Okay.
No, it will happen automatically. But folks will need to return them just as they always do in time, either before election day to the town clerk's office or on election day at the polling place. Still, the vast majority of folks that vote with us vote in person. And I think that's all I've got, but I'm open to questions. Oh, I did include, I'm sorry, the second document in there is that Vermont 2024 Law Enforcement Quick Reference Guide, which, you know, I think it's more helpful for the police to look at than necessarily folks who aren't police, but it was referenced in this guide to use it, so. Okay.
Why don't we let the chief talk, and then we can answer these two, and then we can move on to.
Okay. So for us, this is a little more complicated probably. On paper, not so much. You have in your packet our fair and impartial policing policy. What that is a state mandated policy. Every law enforcement agency in Vermont is required to adopt and adhere to this policy. That specifies exactly what our role is and what our role and authority are in immigration enforcement. Basically, in a nutshell, we have no role. We are prohibited from participating in civil immigration enforcement. We have authority to enforce federal law, which means we could enforce federal criminal immigration enforcement, but it is not our priority. It's not something we spend any time doing. I can answer questions you have about that policy. As a point of reference for you, that policy came about that it was mandated throughout the state 2014, 2016-ish. We were doing that in Middlebury long before that. So that should tell you something about the culture here and the culture of your police department. We are not interested in immigration enforcement. We haven't been. This goes back a very long time. Our interest is having people willing to speak to us when they need our help. Where this gets more complex is what you just saw in South Burlington 13 days ago. When we back up a little bit, I've received many calls, as you can imagine, from community members, from citizens, from organizations, from schools, from the college, from the hospital, always asking similar questions. What do we do when ICE shows up? And more specifically, do we call the police? And what are the police going to do about it? I have encouraged everyone who's asked that question, yes, please call us. First and foremost, let us verify this is what it purports to be, so that we can ensure this isn't someone who is posing as an ICE agent, conducting a kidnapping under the guise of being an ICE operation. So we want to verify this is actually what it is. Our second role here is what I call a peacekeeping role. Let us be observers. Let us be there as a de-escalating peacekeeping force. The bubble I have to burst, unfortunately, is we cannot stop ICE. If ICE is acting lawfully, they have the authority to act. We cannot intervene. That is a hard conversation to have with folks. I understand the fear. I understand how polarizing this issue is. Our duty is public safety, and that is why I ask, and you'll hear this echoed by my colleagues if you watch the hearing, the joint hearing at the State House last week in Montpelier with the chief of South Burlington Police Department, Commissioner of Public Safety, and the director of Vermont State Police. They all echoed that same idea. We all operate under the same rules here. This statewide policy is the same for all of us. Having said that, on paper it says what we can do. Now there's a lot of questions about what happened in South Burlington. And there is a lot of finger pointing. There are a lot of hard feelings, and I understand them. I spent a great part of the day today watching, not all of it, but there was a 5-hour Burlington City Council meeting last night. I didn't have time to watch all 5 hours, but I paid particular attention to the beginning of it where citizens spoke. I wanted to understand what better way to understand is listening to the people that might have an opposing viewpoint than I know what my colleagues are going to say. So I wanted to hear what everybody else had to say. And there was very many poignant remarks made, one of which, one of the most striking things I heard out of all this is something that I have cautioned when asked. I have been asked this very question: what happens when they being ICE, are going to abduct a child out of the school? Are you going to step in? Are you going to arrest them? And that's, again, where I have to deliver the very unfortunate message. If they are acting lawfully, we have no authority to impede them. If we impede them, we're committing a crime by doing so. What I have cautioned to everybody that I have spoken to when they ask, because they're so passionate about wanting us to save them, the last thing we want is law enforcement versus law enforcement. Nothing good can come of that. One of the statements that I was referencing, one of these folks mentioned that was involved in the incident in South Burlington, he asked, if the ICE agents point their guns at us, who are we going to point our guns at? That's the scenario I don't. What do we do? As a department, as a community, we have two choices here. We have to abide by that fair and impartial policing policy. There's no question. If ICE arrives in Middlebury, which could happen, we are likely not going to know about it in advance. There's a chance we will. There's probably a better chance, in my view, that we won't. The two options we have are we go and try to do what I just said, or we don't go. What you'll hear from the law enforcement agencies that participated in South Burlington was they were afraid what would happen if they don't go. I share those sentiments completely. We need to be the observers. We may not be able to intervene. We may not be able to stop the action, but I believe wholeheartedly that we belong there, that we have a role to play, and that's a critical role. We're not going to make everybody happy. And we all need to understand that going into this. Last thing I'll say before I open up for questions is what I ask for is cooler heads to prevail. When the agents get backed into a corner, they're going to react, they're going to escalate, and we have seen all too often nationwide that escalation is disproportionate sometimes, and that's what concerns me. That's why I want us to be there, and I really think that is our critical role here. Happy to answer questions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to open it to the select board to ask questions. I was going to open it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chief, thank you so much. I honestly feel relatively safer being in Middlebury because I know you are on top of this. So thank you so much. I have two questions. One of them is that's on page 7, the first paragraph. Would you like me to read that?
Of the fair and impartial policing policy?
Yeah. It says, however, two federal statutes provide that local and state agencies and officials may not prevent or restrict their employees from communicating with federal immigration authorities regarding an individual's citizenship or immigration status. Can you expand on that for me? It's a little bit concerning that any employee of your PD can just go against your wishes.
So this came up, this current fair and impartial policing policy went through many phases. Many partners were involved. Law enforcement was involved in the drafting of this. Microjustice was heavily involved in this, and this was a give and take. And one of the original requests was no communication. That was found to, during this process, be a violation of federal law, which you cannot prohibit. You cannot force your police to violate federal law. So hence why that language is in there like that. Now the rest of it will read I can assure you we do not communicate immigration status. As you saw, we have an unfortunate connection to this South Burlington incident. Back in January, we arrested that individual for DUI. We did not communicate his immigration status to the federal government. They can find out on their own, which is what happened here.
The second one is, and I know you've said that before, I'm pretty sure that if there is an ICE raid in Middlebury, you're not going to know somehow, or you are going to know. I'm struggling with that part, because if somebody comes to my store and grabs me and we call the police, are you going to come investigate if they're ICE agents, or are you going to come just grab them? So the thing is, if somebody can be a imposter and kidnap me or something, so are you going to come and ask him for ID? How does that work?
So that, to my point, why I want folks to call us to verify this is a legitimate law enforcement operation. We will figure that out. We have direct lines we can call, and we will call through their chain of command and find out, is this a bona fide operation? Give us some information about this. You know, I'm confident we will get it at that point.
But you don't. The struggle I have is you absolutely would not know that they have an operation going on.
Unless they share it with us, we are not going to know until it happens. That did not in South Burlington. The South Burlington Police Department had no idea until they started getting calls regarding a traffic crash.
Chief, does the college, the hospital, the school systems, the churches, the daycares, do they all have their own personal? Do you know how well prepared all those types of organizations? That's kind of a grand question. But
it feels to me in my communications that they are prepared to the point one of them has a script for staff should ICE arrive, what they can and can't do. The college, for example, was doing a tabletop exercise about this very issue. I could not join them a couple of weeks ago, but they informed me, invited me to this. And I would have to believe, I would hope, and I think they have all consulted with their counsel to come up with their game plan for this. I believe in my conversations, they are prepared.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a question. Thank you so much, first of all, for being here and speaking with us about this and being so thoughtful. And I feel like you've reflected. It's just nice to hear you talk about this. My question is, the fair and impartial policing policy is very thorough, and I was glad to read it. I feel like it obviously very explicitly deals with the relationship between the local police department and people who may be biased against or who may be suspected of having immigration issues. And it also deals with the relationship between the police department and the federal agents. What it doesn't address, and what came up in South Burlington that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is sort of the relationship between the local police department and protesters, people who show up in a moment of concern to be there to witness. Clearly that was one of the things that caused real tension and chaos and uncertainty in South Burlington. So I'm curious what your policy is, if the department has a policy specifically about protesters or gatherings like that, and how you would approach it.
Not in that sense. Now, one thing I will not do, I will not second guess. I don't have all the information on either side, so I don't have all the information I know is what you know. I don't have any inside information. I haven't spoken directly to any of my colleagues who were involved, so I will not second guess them, nor will I second guess the folks who arrived there, because they have a story to tell, and their story hasn't been completely told. And what I will say is, in my ideal world, when I see the same videos you've seen, is I would have preferred more separation between the protesters and the federal agents. The ideal here is, by all means, exercise your constitutional rights. By all means, be present. The interaction is where this goes awry, and That's where it gets really dicey for Vermont law enforcement, because anything we do that is perceived as helping the federal agents is going to be perceived, in this case, it has been perceived as a violation of this fair and impartial policing policy. This is such a delicate balance. That separation is key, because again, when I talked about the agents being backed into a corner, they're going to react, and I'm concerned about that, and we can't just stop that reaction. We operate under a statewide as well use of force policy. All the law enforcement agencies in Vermont have the same use of force policy. The federal law enforcement does not abide by Vermont's use of force policy. They have their own. Now it's going to be very similar. Our standards for using force theirs can't be vastly different, but I can't speak with authority on theirs. But if I'm answering your question, in the ideal world, that intermingling where you had agents, you had Vermont police officers shoulder to shoulder, that is certainly not the ideal. I would much have preferred, and I'm not second guessing again, because likely based on what I've seen, this wouldn't have happened, a separation. Protesters are here, agents are here operating. That likely wasn't going to happen here, because one of the images I saw were protesters, surrounding the house, arm in arm, to prevent entry to the house. That also is extremely difficult for us, because the agents obtained a search warrant. They have a judicially issued warrant, can't stop them. And what I learned from the State House testimony was that the South Burlington Police Chief, the incident commander here, implored ICE to abandon this operation. It's nearest to schools, and there are other ways to accomplish these goals, and they said that by any means necessary. That statement concerns me, and that is that scenario where folks are expecting us to stop it. That's that blue on blue scenario that we don't want. Nobody wants that. And to answer your question, I'm sorry, in a roundabout way, we have no perfect plan for this. We will try to get everyone to cooperate with us, to de-escalate. The agents are going to do their business. They're going to do it. And we need to stop it from escalating and getting more dangerous, if not deadly.
Thank you.
Izzy, got any question?
I was just gonna say, if a protest became not peaceful, in any scenario, not related to ICE, what is our policy?
So, we will be quickly overwhelmed. Any agency in this state will. This is Vermont. We have about 12 to 1,400 police officers statewide. That's not a lot. And no agency can do it alone. Hence, you heard, if you watch these briefings, these city council meetings, the State House testimony, you'll hear about mutual aid. That's how we operate on a daily basis. None of us are large enough to do it on our own. So if that were to occur in Middlebury, any protest that we need to deal with because it's becoming disorderly, because it's becoming unruly, because it's causing issues, we're going to have to call a lot of our friends. Just as they did in South Burlington, the same thing will happen here, if we decide that we need outside help to manage it.
Danielle, do you have any questions?
It seems in South Burlington there were a few of Vermont state laws that were recently passed that were violated. And what I've been curious about, and I don't know if you would have the answer, is when the Vermont House passed the No Secret Police Act, the ICE agents being masked, and they were all masked. Who
So that's not
enforces
enacted yet. That's it. So that bill is still before the legislature, to my
Okay.
knowledge, so it hasn't been enacted. We'll see where that lands. If it does, that will be challenged by the federal government, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Continue.
No.
Finish your. So the state police, some of the video they were masked and didn't have identification. I'll back up. I agree with everybody else, but thank you for everything you said and all you've done. We start there. But, you know, I have to ask, are there any instances in which the local police would cover themselves and their identification?
So, mask, yes, but for a valid reason. Conceal our identity only for undercover operations. We already have rules in place. So our code of conduct that we have, a multi-page document, requires us, upon request, we will furnish our name, rank, and ID number to anyone who asks. That is also covered incidentally by the fair and impartial policing policy if you read closely, but that's already, since the 1990s, that's been in our code of conduct. We wear our uniformed officers, their name is on their uniform. Now, if it's pouring rain and they're putting a rain parka on, that might not be visible, but they will identify themselves. The only way we're going to be covering our faces is inclement weather, obviously, with a balaclava or something like that. Or if it's a threat environment, chemical, biological, things like that. So you may see a surgical mask, not to conceal our identity. The only time we want to conceal our identity, it would be undercover operations, which we have a policy. That same conduct policy dictates that. We're not in the business of hiding who we are.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, I was quite sure. But what you said about urging cooler heads to prevail. You know, there was an incident in Williston where some indivisible members made a protest outside or in the vestibule of an office. Now they intended to be very non-violent in any of this. So they had a communications person who, and so they did express their civil disobedience. They were arrested for trespass, but the communication. Now, when you have a mob show up, and your ability to communicate is going to be pretty limited, but having cooler heads prevail is really, really important. How you make that happen is challenging.
Crowd management is difficult. This isn't Disney World moving thousands of people. This is managing people who are very upset. Not that you can't be upset in Disney World standing in a long line, but you know what I mean. This is people who are very passionate. And again, in the ideal world, if we can identify a leader and have direct contact between law enforcement and that leader, what are your goals? What are you looking for? This goes to the extent, are you looking to get arrested? We can arrange, and we'll do it in a and I'm saying that this is common practice in that scenario where you want to sit or you just want to say you're not leaving, we will arrest you and we will process and release you, and it's all nonviolent and you accomplish your goal. We will work with you to make that happen if that's what you're looking for.
But needless to say, shoving, spitting on police officers, nobody reacts very well to that.
That doesn't typically end well, correct.
And I don't know how you can't control who will show up from where or their deportment, but establishing early communication with people that you might recognize who can in turn communicate would be really important. I don't know if there's anything else that you could think of that you would do differently that would work out better in the chaos of South Burlington. Other than that, I would love to hear it.
I don't have enough information, honestly, because, you know, first and foremost, when I see the videos, and I've only seen the videos that you've seen, I already spoke, I would like a greater degree of separation. That may not have been feasible, and I'm guessing it wasn't, based on the way this transpired. And there were a lot of judgment calls made that day, and for the police to be involved to begin with, at all, to not leave. But the hand was forced. The federal government forced their hand. And this is a really unfortunate situation for Vermont law enforcement, for agencies nationwide. We work really hard to build the trust with our communities. And when we get put in this impossible scenario, and it truly is an impossible scenario, we stand to lose a lot of that trust and to undo so much hard work. And that's not what we want. None of us want this. We want to do our jobs the way we've been doing it. We want to always do them better. We do not want to get wrapped up in immigration enforcement. That is not our mission.
So if ICE says to you, you remove these people who have their arms locked around the house, or we will, and you go to the people who have their arms locked and say, would you rather have us remove you or have what they might do?
So in that scenario, we won't necessarily remove. So another question that came up one time was, can the federal agencies tell us what to do, if you will, for lack of a better way of describing this? They cannot. They have no authority over us. In that scenario, if they say they're going to do it, we can't help them. That's prohibited. That is prohibited. The decision that was made in South Burlington is, let us do it our way to try to de-escalate this. If we're gonna get involved to that extent, it's going to be in that way. We're going to say what you just said. Is there a way we can convince you to leave here? Angelo Lind wrote a piece in last week's Addison Independent where he talks about finding a better strategy for that scenario. And one of the things he suggested actually was if they being ICE again, shows up with a warrant, let the police approach the house and ask the people to come out on their own. You know, whether that's going to happen in real world, I can't exactly say, but it's an interesting idea. That is, I get where he's going with it. The more we can let the police do some of this work, but again, this is so impossible for us because some of this work we can't do. And we don't want the perception that we are enforcing immigration, because we don't want to and we can't.
Okay, let's open up the questioning, or can you time these things? So I would ask if you, I'm not sure, we're gonna have to make some type of movement arrangement over here for you two, and so if I'm going to open the floor. If you have a statement, you're gonna 3 minutes for your statement. If you got a question, then you come up and ask your question, and we'll get the question answered. So please, I'll let you self-select here. Just come up, sit down, state your name, and ask your question or give us your statement. And would you monitor for online questions too?
Yeah, we have one
Thanks.
hand up now.
Okay. Sure.
Real quick question. Richard McCurry.
Identify who you are.
Richard McCurry. Call 911 or call the day line?
Always the direct line, unless it is a true life and death emergency. Will get us faster through the direct line, but if it's a real emergency, call 911. They will be giving you instructions while you are connected.
Thank you.
Can you please come up and, I don't know if you want to queue up or anything like that, but
I
think it's always going to be a conversation with the chief, please.
I was wondering if the police, in case of an ICE raid, can ask for the judicial warrant, or does it need to be the person who is actually being
Asked to see it, you mean?
Yeah.
We certainly can ask.
Okay.
That'll be up to them whether they'll share it. I would say there's a good chance they'll share it with us, especially if they're looking for us to participate in any way. It would be nice for us to see.
Yes,
we cannot force that for them to show it to us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Just self-select, come on up if you're ready to go.
I'm Ann Christie. When I lost where he went. Oh, there you are. First off, I wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And my question is about whistles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any response to people blowing whistles?
I have 3 kids, so it's I'm used to loud noises. No, if people are going to blow whistles, they're going to blow whistles. I understand the intent behind that. Can it increase stress levels? It certainly can. We're used to stressful environments. We have hearing protection. We will deal with it. If that's what folks want to do, then folks are going to do it. I'm not going to object to it. Certainly, by all means. Thank you for asking them.
And while somebody else is coming up, and we've got somebody online too.
Yep, we have Judy. So Judy, I'm gonna allow you to speak there. If you unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks so much. And all of you, thanks so much for your efforts. I don't know if these are so much questions, if they are comments and suggestions. If we're going to develop a plan, a comprehensive plan about how to deal with ice in Middlebury, maybe most importantly, might it be wise to develop an ad hoc committee to work on this in more detail? Yeah, that's one. Maybe suggestions are to identify places that are off limits to ice. Are there places that are simply off limits to ice? Schools, playgrounds, churches, to name a few. Can we say that there will be no ice facility ever in Middlebury? They will not be allowed to set up a facility here. Second, while they might, and I find this very disconcerting to be able to wear a face covering, but as long as you can see somebody's eyes, you can identify them. But they must show a badge. You must have a clearly visible badge on your person. And I think the whole idea of having a warrant is most important. That without a warrant, my understanding is, at least for now, you don't get to come in and do stuff without a signed warrant by a judge. Is that correct?
Judy, are you referring to ICE or police in general?
Well, I mean, if ICE goes in somewhere, like let's say they show up, holy Jiminy Crickets, they show up at Farhad's store. If they don't have a warrant, they can't simply go in.
That's not that simple. So that is a publicly open store. They can go in now. Using a home would be a better example. Now, typically, so the way law enforcement works generally, we can't enter someone's private property without reason to be there. Now, typically that will be a search warrant. That can be by consent. You let us in, or exigent circumstances, emergency circumstances. Those are exceptions to the search warrants requirement that we utilize. ICE may be operating a little differently. There are news stories, and I don't know if this is true, allegedly that there has been a legal opinion that their administrative warrants are sufficient for entering premises. That is not something we do, and we do not even honor their administrative warrants. Those are not judicially issued warrants, so therefore they have we just simply don't honor them. An administrative warrant is a tool that they have where ICE employees themselves can sign an order, or they can sign. For example, back in the day before we were no longer communicating, if we had somebody in custody, for example, for DUI, let's use this example back in January, and Border Patrol found out about it, they could send us an administrative detainer That was signed by Border Patrol itself, and it was not reviewed by a judge, and it would authorize to hold them for a period of time until the federal government could come take custody of them. No longer do we honor those, and no longer are we sharing information anyway. But even, like I said, the ICE can know when we arrest somebody. They knew about this DUI. That's generally going to be based when we fingerprint the person, goes into a national database, and they get notified. If they were to call us, which, full transparency, we were called around the time of that DUI arrest. We were called twice, 2 separate occasions, 2 separate arrests we made by ICE looking for information, and they were told both times by each a different shift supervisor that can't help them, could not provide the information. So even if they were to send us one of these detainers, we wouldn't honor it.
But does that mean?
Judy, your time's up. So, but I'm sorry, but I'm gonna get the chief to answer some of your questions. Do ICE officers have to show badges? Do they display badges?
I do not know what their federal requirements are. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Are there off-limits areas in the?
There is legislation pending to do that very thing. That will be challenged, certainly by the administration.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
However, schools, hospitals, they have their own rules in place that they're not going to grant admittance. Now, if any law enforcement officer shows up with a search warrant, then.
Right,
But absent the warrant, my understanding from some of the institutions in town is they intend to not grant access.
Okay.
But ICE can show and break down your door. There's nothing anybody can do about it.
And that is problematic.
Yes.
There should be.
So I don't think there's any probability that ICE facility is ever going to be established in Middlebury unless it's a temporary one?
I wouldn't expect that. They can't even, again, in the fair and impartial policing policy, they can't even use our facility, the police department, for their purposes. We have federal agents at the police department routinely. We work hand in hand. When it's not that we don't work with federal agencies. When we were searching for the missing college student back last fall, we had 2 Border Patrol agents sent down to us who helped greatly. And one was suffered a serious injury while searching for that college student. We interact with federal agencies all the time, joint for reasons, just not immigration.
Okay, and at the end of this whole conversation, we'll talk about a committee, or we'll get a little discussion on that. Okay, thanks, Judy. Ross.
Ross Conrad, Middlebury. I had one comment and one question. In the media coverage of the South Burlington event on March 11th, some law enforcement were quoted as saying that they were there to protect the public that was there and to protect ICE. And I would like to suggest and hope that you will agree and maybe share with your department that ICE doesn't need protecting. They have weapons, they have flak jackets, so that was just something that kind of stood out for me. But the question I had for you was, you said that the police can't interfere unless they're breaking the law. But if they are breaking the law, that assumes that your department will try to do something, and I'm wondering if excessive force counts as breaking the law, and if not, what would?
So this is another common question we get they're in the eye of the beholder, they are breaking the law, they are entering the school without a warrant. Are we going to arrest them then? Again, that scenario is not ideal for us, and also we aren't going to adjudicate the lawfulness of their actions. As you can probably imagine, many times when we are taking law enforcement action, people are claiming we're doing it wrong and that we're violating their rights, and many times they're just wrong. I'd like to hope that the vast majority of the time, in our case, they're not. You didn't read my Miranda rights, things like that, to get out of jail free. No, that's not how it actually works. So, in the case of this federal operation, I can't give you a scenario where we are going to intervene to the point of arresting. Now, could that happen? I could see it. I don't ever want to see it rise to that level, because I'm really worried where you have a federal agent operating who thinks they're operating lawfully. Now you have a Vermont police officer saying, no, you're not. Who's pointing their guns at who? And what comes of that? That's the scenario that we must avoid at all costs, because nobody wins there, and there's a lot of innocent people that could get hurt. Now, when it comes to excessive force, our statewide use of force policy requires us, all Vermont law enforcement officers are required to intervene if we witness excessive force being used. Now, again, what is excessive is commonly misunderstood by those who aren't trained in the use of force policies. We are accused of using excessive force when we didn't even use force. So it's one of those things, you know it when you see it. If our officers see something that they feel is excessive in the moment, they're required to intervene. There could be arguments about whether that was excessive or not. And again, federal law enforcement is not bound by Vermont's use of force policy. It doesn't mean they get to do whatever they want, but our restrictions are not their restrictions. So it gets, again, when I started this whole conversation, this is extremely complex. It really is. It's not something that we can just say, you're wrong, stop, and ICE is just going to listen. That's not the Vermont way. Unfortunately, it's not going to be that easy. And by all means, we have to avoid that standoff. Now, we have no problem reporting up their chain of command, reporting to whomever we need to report to if we take issue. Whether they care, I can't say.
And do your officers have body cameras so they can record?
Indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Thank you. I'm Molly Anderson, and following up on Ross's question, excessive use of force, you watched the same videos that the rest of us watched. And when I assume it was an ICE agent, yanked the protester out of line and threw her on the pavement.
That was the state police. It was the state police.
That was state police. Was that excessive use of force?
So that is one of those second guessing things I won't do. What I will say is that every use of force should be thoroughly investigated. We're required to do that every time we use force. It is investigated at multiple levels. A snapshot in time, we won't use. We will do interviews. So there presumably is body worn camera footage there as well. I'd want to review all that. Now, having said that, do I see things that I'm only seeing that snapshot that I think, was there a better way? Was that necessary? All of our force has to be what's called objectively reasonable. Okay? That's the lens that we view uses of force through. It could be that force that was used there was not objectively reasonable, meaning it could have been done another way. I have seen some things that were concerning to me, yes. Would I weigh in not knowing the full circumstances? Absolutely not. I just wouldn't, because I don't want anybody to do that to our officers, and I don't want anybody to do that for the protesters either, because I've heard all of these statements made that there were agitators, that there were people that were violent. I don't know. I was there. I haven't seen all of the evidence of that. If they were, then shame on them too. Shame on any cop that uses excessive force, more so than anybody else. But if anyone got violent, violence does not have a place here, and on either side. Sometimes we do, and law enforcement have to use violence, but there are strict rules about the use of it.
And I think that was Officer Gonzalez, is that correct? The Vermont State Police who yanked the woman out of the line.
That's Burlington Police Department.
Was he disciplined?
They are, I can't speak to their disciplinary process. I know they have, according to Chief Burke, the Burlington Police Chief, they have one use of force review that he's spoken publicly. Again, I have no inside information. I don't know if it's that one. I simply don't know. There is an internal review process. We also share throughout the state. All law enforcement agencies in the state have to have a internal affairs policy. These policies, by the way, these statewide policies, we have to submit to the Vermont Criminal Justice Council annually for review to make sure we are in compliance with the minimum requirements of these statewide policies. So ours will be very similar to Burlington, I'm sure. it is a thorough review process that takes time. And in that event, the number of body worn cameras that I imagine we're running, plus trying to get all the cell phone video they can to do a comprehensive, thorough investigation, that certainly takes time. So I don't know where it stands. I wouldn't be able to speak to it even if I did. It's not my agency, not my place to speak to it. But I do know Burlington has publicly said they have one internal affair investigation, and I believe it's related to a use of force.
And just one more question. Do you believe that there were outside agitators who came in? Or it's so easy for the administration or for people who are not on the side of the protesters to say, oh, there were outside agitators who came in and these were not our people, our peaceful protesters. And I just don't know what to make of that. I'm very skeptical personally, but I'm wondering what your reaction is.
I have no inside information. I've heard the same things you've heard, so I wouldn't have a way to know otherwise. There were outside federal agents. There.
Outside
Many of the federal agents, and I know this from public testimony, were not Vermont-based federal agents.
And not ICE agents.
They were ICE agents.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
ICRO, I believe.
Any other questions or statements? And let's try to keep this pertinent to the town of Middlebury and not evaluation of and question the chief about his opinions on enforcement of that specific incident, because we could go to Minnesota and spend weeks here. So keep the questions or statement pertinent to this community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Francesca Donnelly. I wrote down some of my questions, so I feel like I'm not feeling that's why. But I wanted to hear your opinion on the use of like flashbangs, especially in relation to ICE raids. I have a few questions, so I don't know if you want to answer it like but how do you feel about the use of like more like I understand the definition of excessive force like varies, but how do you feel about the use of weapons on the community, especially people who are unarmed?
Again, it's concerning, but to blanket statement that it can't be used, they can be used. There are applications where they are used, and they can be used in situations. A flashbang is a diversionary, distractionary tactic, and it is meant to shock and cause people to move away, to disperse, if you will. So there are legitimate applications of that, and things like that are used in crowd management. Now again, if we do it the best, we never get to that point, and we don't want it to get to that point. My understanding, again, I mean, I'm only speaking from a position of knowing what you all know from the media, is the federal government was employing those tools to include pepper ball and rubber bullets, I believe, so less than lethal munitions, which do have their place. They certainly do. Whether they were required there, I don't know. Seems like my Vermont law enforcement colleagues might disagree that they were necessary, but again, I have no inside information.
I think that's fair. Also, to kind of piggyback off of some of the other questions I've heard, I also know that when ICE officers are doing a raid, they might be doing it under the pretense that what they're doing is lawful or correct. But how would the fire department, oh my gosh, how would the police department react to somebody who is not an immigrant or who is a U.S. citizen, who has no criminal record, who is being profiled? Because ICE has done that under this current administration. So how would you guys handle that as an unlawful situation, especially because they don't really have the authority, at least from what I understand, to deal with citizens who are born here?
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you referring to when,
like,
for in this example where ICE entered the house to execute the search warrant and took out people who weren't named in the warrant? Is it that kind of scenario that you're speaking of?
I'm speaking on if they, because I have heard stories of people being detained who are U.S. citizens who are not, like whether they had a administrative warrant, which I mean, usually, from my understanding, they wouldn't have a judicial warrant for those searches because it's not an immigrant, I guess, like for the lack of a better term. But like, sorry, I'm losing my thought. I'm not good at public speaking, but like, I guess I'm just kind of wondering how you would deal with somebody who, what was your question again?
I was asking if you were referring to the scenario. One of the common themes I've heard is that ICE entered this house on Dorset Street with a search warrant. So that warrant is approved by a judge, requires the applying officer to show probable cause. That's the burden of proof for a search warrant. So they convinced a federal judge, and they did not find the person they were looking for in the house, but they detained and removed 3 other people. So I've heard a lot of questioning about what was their authority to do that. That person wasn't even named in the warrant. So we may not necessarily know what their information is. We're all presuming they're going to share a lot of information with us. I'm not going to presume that.
Yeah.
And that we know the reason for them detaining somebody and questioning somebody. It also probably isn't going to make a lot of friends for us if we just show up at ICE and start second guessing them. They're because they owe us no explanations, and they know that, and vice versa. We wouldn't react well if we're at doing a traffic stop and an ICE agent pulls up and said, "Who's that?" and are they in the country illegally? We're going to tell them, "Hit the road."
Because
I
have seen clips and heard testimonies of people having those interactions where ICE will kind of be racially profiling people. So I guess I just feel a little concerned for people who they might have, like, who they might just be racially profiling, because I feel like it would feel a bit better to hear that, like, you guys could do something in that instance where it's not as administrative as a judicial warrant.
Unfortunately, this is one of those scenarios where we might not be able to do anything. Our rules, we cannot racially profile. Their rules are very different. We won't necessarily know what they're up to, what they're doing, what the legal basis. Let me go back to this house that was entered in this question about removing 3 people who weren't named in the warrant. So when we obtain a search warrant, say we're going to look for stolen property. Say we're looking for a stolen ATM. And we get a search warrant for a house. And we go into this house looking for a stolen ATM. And we don't find the ATM, but we find, a bunch of drugs. We don't ignore the drugs, the illegal drugs. It's not named in the warrant, but we found it. We were lawfully present when we found it. Okay. So I'm not in any way defending what ICE did, by the way. So don't take it that way. But there's some misunderstandings about how this process actually works and what's needed for information. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, if ICE stops somebody because they're racial profiling, what are the police going to do to right that wrong?
Like if that person is like, I have a passport, I can.
I'm sorry, your time is up. So
okay.
We're gonna.
Can I ask one more question for the committee?
No, we're gonna have to move it on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Anybody else
want to speak?
We have one up.
Oh, one more, okay.
It's Judy, so would you like me to?
Sure.
All right, Judy. You'll need to unmute yourself.
Just quickly, Chief, do you have, what are your ideas for a comprehensive plan to address this issue?
Judy, what issue are you talking about, Judy?
I'm sorry?
What issue are you talking about? If it's a global issue of ICE or immigration, I'm not sure we have time to answer.
No, it's ICE in Middlebury. So what, Chief Covey, would you like to see happen here? how would you like to see this resolved? Is it by continued public conversations? Is it by forming an ad hoc committee to work on possible solutions? What do you see as the best case scenario for addressing this?
Can I
keep Middlebury citizens safe?
Hey Judy, can I reword this maybe a little bit? I think maybe adding on to that is, do we have enough right now with your policies and the policies that all the organizations in town have for their in place in the various locations and nonprofits and profits and schools and hospitals? Do we have enough right now to handle any situation of ICE coming in and confronting us here? Or is there more that you need, or we as a select board, or we as a town should be organizing to help come up with more procedures or policies or actions?
I believe the organizations are prepared. I believe the town is prepared. There's always more that can be done. We cannot stop ICE from coming to Middlebury. They will come here. What we need is for them to operate within their lawful authority and not stretch the limits. That's where this gets really difficult, and where there's a lot of debate about what they're doing, whether it's lawful or not. Now, folks may disagree when they have a search warrant or an arrest warrant that they should be executing that warrant. That grievance should not be taken up on the street. There are other mechanisms for that. That, sad to say, you're not going to prevail. They will win that fight. And South Burlington, what was most concerning there was their refusal to withdraw. There are times when we have to pick our fights, and we do it on a daily basis. When we have to, our calculus includes risk to public safety versus the need to apprehend this person at this moment in time. ICE is not, in my opinion, is not showing the greatest ability to exercise that critical thinking, and that's what's concerning. So what do we do to prepare? We are preparing, but we need to be prepared for them not being as reasonable as we want them to be, and for the fact that even if they are acting lawfully, if they are completely within their authority to do something, that some folks are going to take issue with that. And I just again need cooler heads to prevail. Be nonviolent. Do not impede. Please don't put us in that position.
And thanks, Judy, for giving us a chance here to ask a wrap-up question like that. So, Select Board, any more comments?
If you're gonna bring up the ATMs, what are you allowed to share with us?
Wait, go ahead.
So I won't share a lot. If you don't already know, in the course of 12 days, we've had 3 ATMs stolen, one from Maple Fields in East Middlebury, one from Kinney Drug, and one from Champlain Farms. All of these have occurred in the overnight hours, pretty much between 2 and 4 a.m. in a 2-hour time span. We have some ideas. We are working. This takes time. This takes time. There are some tremendous investigative efforts underway right now, cutting edge, that I cannot share for obvious reasons. But anybody who knows anything, we want to hear from you. If you took it, we really want to hear from you. This happens. This isn't the first time this has ever happened here. This is a little atypical to have three in a 2-week span. And we're the only 24-hour law enforcement agency in this county, and we have 2 or 3 officers on at night. So we do the best we can with what we have, but even if we had 10, you can't always prevent crime. That's just not how this works. And we will do our best. There are no more details I can share, I think.
Laura, did you have something for?
Not to extend this, but you have been working with a lot of groups like the hospital and the college, and they have protocols, and so have faith communities. And I mean, at least what I've gotten is basically what you're saying. You know, you can't prevent them from entering the building if they have a warrant, and record. You know, like and call the police. But is there a model that you've seen so that we don't have to keep reinventing this? So like if your business wants to see a good model of what to do in the event that ICE attempts to enter your building, you can go to that. You don't have to create that from scratch. I mean, we know the know your rights thing, but
I have not seen one, but I have a feeling that's a quick Google away, is my guess. A quick Google search away from finding.
Because you've just done
the template.
Somebody advised me that I should post a sign by my warehouse employees only to deter ICE from going in there to get an employee. And I don't know if they're allowed.
In the back of the store?
Yeah. So is there something that if you post a sign that they won't? That's because that's not a public space.
It depends how they're operating. If they have a warrant, all the signs in the world aren't going to stop them. And so we're not in the business, but they're not operating the way the police operate typically. We wouldn't just walk into your storeroom looking for somebody. Again, there are circumstances, exigent circumstances as they're known, or with a warrant. That's different, but anything helps, right?
Of course.
Can't hurt.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for showing up and doing this. I hope this is helpful.
Thank you, Chief.
We probably should have had an all-town forum at the Town Hall Theater so more people get it. And thanks, Chief. You know, this is why we have such a great police department in our town. And thank you, Karen, for your input and your outstanding service too. So we do have another couple of items, and then we have an executive session. So we have to press on, and you all are leaving to go home.
Please stay.
You can hang out.
I love your share.
Okay, so let's continue on, and we have the one item that I had pulled out, and that was basically talking about the discussions that's going on. Oh, we'll wait a second here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Diane asked me about it earlier.
Seems like some kind of PSA is. I mean, sometimes people stuff in national context. To find out if they were ICE.
So basically, what I pulled out was the VLCT's communications to us referencing the local option tax, which is there's a potential for some state legislation. It looks like the money that anybody can jump in.
You want me to? You keep going.
How about I'll give it a try.
Go
And you
for it.
jump in.
Right.
So the local option tax, the state keeps 25% of our local option tax, and they put it into a fund, and they've been using that fund as the pilot. We have, as an example, we have state land here in the town, and it's supposed to have taxes on it. Well, what the state does is give us money that's in lieu of taxes, and they're paying those around the state out of that fund, which has grown to $15 million. And I believe it might be one of our legislators has recommended to take about $3.5 million of that and apply it to a reassessment of properties in the state for this year, and then another 3.5 for next year. So the issue is this money, which has been given to the state from out of the taxes we collect, to come back to us as pilot money. Now it's gonna go to do other things that the state wants to do, which should be funded in the general fund. And, you know, VLCT and anybody who hears this thinks that's wrong. If they're gonna do anything with that money, they should probably refund it to the communities, so the communities could use it on our, and what we have to do, instead of having the state use it is for other things that the general fund should do. Was I even close?
That was good.
I did talk to Mark about this earlier today, so it's not, I'm not a genius here. So. I've been practicing.
This was we try to add in these VLCT updates, especially this time of year, and I think there's additional background that this fund has grown in recent years, and since they keep 25% of the local options that are collected. The concern is the surplus of what they call the surplus keeps growing. Therefore, why not have more of that money go back to the towns rather than it go to pay new lines in the state budget? Because that's not what as the LCT is arguing, the money was originally meant to go to the towns. So I think they're concerned that this seems to be more of a dedicated taking of the surplus funds towards towards state operational costs, and that is a little different than the admin costs associated with local option tax.
Right.
So, that was why this call went out from Josh, who is if you don't know of him, he is the sort of the lead lobbyist and government affairs guy at VLCT on behalf of towns. He does a very good regular webinar that you all are actually, as members of VLCT, able to attend. And so this went out to us, and we shared it with you.
And you have the opportunity to contact our own legislators and complain about this too. And I think this would be particularly interesting for you, because you, Fred.
Oh, okay.
Johnson's going to take notes and do that.
So this is not the only legislator who has an idea and is eyeing local option money. Senator Westman is looking for money to do transportation funding, and so there's been talk about that. The state already changed the formula, taking 30% of the local revenues as tribute to making it 25%, but they should do more. I agree with that, and if there's anything we could do to support the VLCT in this that would be meaningful, that would be, I would support that.
Okay. All right, thank you. There's nothing more to do for that, and I think we're down to, we're at the end. So,
board member concerns.
What's that?
Board member concerns.
Right, board members' concerns. So I'll start with you, Fred.
Mark sent around the letter from Tom Scanlon, who is resigning because of health issues, and the letter is, I was involved in hiring Tom, 2000 it was, I didn't realize it was that long ago. He served a long time, and I would just like the board to acknowledge his service. He had a lot of incredible background, which the letter reflects, and he's done things more than just for the town of Middlebury. He was a Selectboard member and elected in Salisbury. Anyway, I just want to recognize his service and express our support and hope that his medical challenges he's been handling them for a lot of years, but things go well for him.
Okay, good, thank you. We all agree on that, so our best to Tom. Danielle.
I'm still soaking it all in. And I hate to do this, but I do wonder as a select board if it's worth in another meeting to discuss potential, I don't know, call it PSAs or something for the public to be able to de-escalate, because that's not necessarily the community that we have. A light-hearted example is that, we had a celebrity in town and townspeople were stopping them asking if they were ICE. So yes, I found it humorous when I heard that. I had actually John Flowers contact me to validate whether or not it was ICE that was at my restaurant. And then the next question was whether or not Matthew McConaughey was at my restaurant, and I tried to help him pull it together. But so,
Just walk over there.
but I talked to a lot of people, throughout the week, and many people, were cheering that on. The fact that these people were stopping these out-of-towners who had vehicles that were, stood out. And I do wonder if there's anything that we can do. I don't feel that comfortable leaving it, I guess.
I don't think we're gonna leave it, but right now we don't have any, we need to be discussing this with the town staff, and
Yeah.
I don't see anything right now to put on another select board meeting because we don't have anything. But I think we should keep the discussion going. I don't know. I mean, we're not gonna organize a civilian army, or we're not gonna organize the protest groups, or we're not gonna be involved in the call, emergency stuff like that, because we represent the government. We're the legislative body.
That's what I wonder, is if, sorry to interrupt you, I just wonder if there's guidance that we can be offering to the public so that we can help in the attempts to de-escalate or not escalate, or I don't know.
I think those are really good ideas, and I would flip that over to Mark and his staff. They're the ones that should be putting out that type of things, because
They do.
And they
Groups
do.
like Indivisible and others that are trying to assert that in their rallies and actions.
That's not a
But
town
But you
organization.
also might, you'd reach
there's faith organizations, there's all kinds of organizations that are
I think
doing it.
the town would reach a different, maybe overlapping audience and demographic with some kind, and I really appreciate that you put the ICE info on the website. I think that would be maybe a place to just also like what to do if you heard a rumor that ICE is in town, or who to call or that kind of thing. I think it's worth having it somewhere from the town.
Yeah, I think we should have these conversations a half an hour ago when the crowd was here to have these conversations. But I think I think we should bring it up again when we have a more formative idea what we want to talk about.
For sure.
Okay, that's all I was recommending.
I agree.
I think off of that, I think we had a wonderful conversation. I think the trust in our police department and our town clerk is felt throughout the community, and we need to be able to replicate the information that the chief of police and the town clerk shared tonight with a broader audience. And I think getting at that, how we do that, I think I'm all in on that. Other things, I had a great tour of the library, and I am so excited for it to open. Oh my gosh, I'm just beaming. It's beautiful and amazing, and we have so many people working in that building right now. So it's fascinating to see all the different teams working together on plans that I have no idea what's going on, but they do, so good for them.
That's why we pay them, and that's why they're there. Yep. So I'll come up with some date where we can all go together soon.
I'm going tomorrow.
You're going tomorrow? I've been 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Tomorrow, Thursday? No, it's Wednesday. There's a group. They have a weekly meeting on Thursday. It's not one that we want to sit in on, because if you want to see drawings and discussions, it gets rid of it. But they usually tour it, and that's the one I usually jump in on with the builders, which is pretty interesting. It's a little more than general. So, what do you have?
Sweet. I don't have any concerns. I just really appreciated that conversation. It was really just very meaningful, and I feel lucky to have been a part of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe you. If you're,
I have a couple things. This is the first time I saw town meeting minutes in my tenure on the select board. The town meeting minutes.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing it before. So that's great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Never saw
Tom Scanlon, he's one of my best friends. I've known him for a very long time. He's the reason I'm here today. He was the one who pushed me to be on the select board. He's almost like a mentor to me. I love him to pieces. I'm so sad that he's leaving. He has a lot of health issues, I know that. So all the best to him. I want to make a comment about today's proceedings. Thank you, Chief, for being there for us. But I'm very disheartened, I'm very disappointed that after all these conversations, I figure out that we are so helpless that no matter where we come from, we can't do anything. And ICE can just knock in, break down the door and do whatever the heck they want. That legally we can't do anything about that. It's good to know that we have a police department who say we are not going to cooperate with them. But at the end of the day, they are going to get, if there's a standoff for 6 hours, at the end, they are going to get their way, which is very disappointing. And I wish I can say something else positive, but by no means there's anything about the Middlebury PD or the town of Middlebury, but it's very disheartening to know that. And that young lady who was asking a question to the chief about, the question was, you can be a legal US citizen, but just because you are a person of color or something, can they come and take you, and can we do something about it? And I feel like we can't do anything about that, unfortunately.
Thank you. And that sadly is the times that we live in. And the only thing that I've said, I talked to my wife a lot about this, is the only thing I can do is be a select board member and do the best job I can here to make this community a better place. And we're doing our part, and we're giving our constituents an opportunity to speak. I was really, you all were great tonight. I take a note. The questions you ask and the things that you're saying and everything is just really spot on, and it's pretty moving. And I wasn't kidding when I said this whole conversation should have been in the town hall theater, packed with 235 seats. But maybe we'll get to read something about it. But good job for tonight. Thank you.
Possibility.
And I will echo Tom's departure. 25 years here and a lot of years before. A really good dude. So it was sad to see him go. A couple other things I had. Here's a wild and crazy one for you. But I've had a request if the select board would like to be involved in and host a Friday night supper over here at the Congregational Church. And there's many ways we can do it. We can just show up and serve. We can prepare the meal. We can buy the meal and prepare the meal. We can do all kinds of things. But if you would like to do that some Friday night, I've been asked to see if you want to do it.
I would love to. We can cook and bring some food.
Well, you have to bring some food for a lot of people, so it's best to cook it there and be safe and not get any health issues.
So they have regular Sunday night suppers and
Friday nights. Happens every Friday night. Has that happened every Friday night for 12 years, 13 years? So
I would love to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
We set this precedent. We're going to be cooking for everybody. I'm in.
You're cooking for everybody on Friday night, and that's been that was started by the Congregational Church and then mitigated over to the Charter House Coalition. They did it for years. They decided they didn't want to do it. It's back in the church, but it's been one lady that's been doing it. So
how many people usually do they feed?
In house, they're only serving about 50 right now, but they are taking another 50, 75 carryouts.
Oh.
And during the pandemic, they were up to 400 people, but none there, all carryouts. So it's more, restaurants have helped a lot. I'm sure you've been involved in a lot of it. A lot of restaurants have contributed. It's a really good cause, but I said I would carry that forward. So that's all I have, and I think it's time to enter a executive session. So you want to read it?
Sure. I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding probable litigation to which the town would be a party would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage because the discussion will divulge the town's strategy in such probable litigation.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. I further move to enter into executive session with the inclusion of the town manager and assistant town manager and director of administration to discuss probable litigation as allowed under
Director of Engineering.
and
Director
Director
of Public Works Operations.
okay, both of them.
And both of them.
As allowed under Title 1, Section 313A1E.
Okay, second? I second it. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
I'm sorry.